Every now and then, I like to come out here and give you guys some good news. Every now and then, I like to say, hey, not everything sucks donkey balls. By the way, am I going to get demonetized for donkey balls? My instinct is actually to say no. It's like sufficiently weird that it might actually work around the algorithm. So I don't know, you tell me. But by the way, this new cursing policy is destroying this channel. So support us on Patreon if you actually like the show. Anyway, I digress. So look at this. Millions of workers are subject to non-compete agreements. They could soon be banned. So it looks like the FTC, led by Lina Khan, who actually is good at her job, decided we're going to crack down on these non-compete agreements, which, by the way, is going to raise wages for millions of workers. So let me give you the specifics. The Federal Trade Commission took a bold move on Thursday aimed at shifting the balance of power from companies to workers. The agency proposed a new rule that would prohibit employers from imposing non-compete agreements on their workers, a practice it called exploitative and widespread, affecting some 30 million American workers. Quote, "The freedom to change jobs is core to economic liberty and to a competitive, thriving economy," said FTC Chair Lina M. Khan in a statement. Non-competes block workers from freely switching jobs, depriving them of higher wages and better working conditions, and depriving businesses of a talent pool that they need to build and expand. Non-compete agreements restrict workers from quitting their jobs and taking new jobs at rival companies or starting up similar businesses of their own within a certain time period, typically between 6 months and 2 years. They're used across a broad array of industries, including in high-paying white-collar fields, such as banking and tech, but also in many low-wage sectors as well, as President Biden has pointed out. Quote, "These aren't just high-paid executives or scientists who hold secret formulas for Coca-Cola so Pepsi can't get their hands on it," Biden said in a speech about competition in 2021. A recent study found 1 in 5 workers without a college education is subject to non-compete agreements. They're construction workers, hotel workers, disproportionately women and women of color. Employers have argued that they need non-competes to protect trade secrets and investments they put into growing their businesses, including training workers. A handful of states, including California and Oklahoma, already ban non-competes, so that's interesting. You have a very right-wing state and a very left-wing state that agree on this point. And a number of other states, including Maryland and Oregon, have prohibited their use among lower-paid employees. But those rules are difficult to enforce, with low-wage workers often reluctant to speak out. The FTC estimates that a ban on non-compete agreements could increase wages by nearly $300 billion a year. Jesus, that's a huge pay increase. By allowing workers to pursue better opportunities. The rule does not take effect immediately. The public has 60 days to offer comment on the proposed rule, after which a final rule could be published and then enforced some months after. So, look, you guys should go comment on this, right? Say this is an awesome idea. You better go through with it. Go comment on the FTC website because they're giving people an opportunity to weigh in. The FTC will likely face legal challenges, including on whether it even has the power to regulate non-compete agreements. The agency says the proposed rule is based on a preliminary finding that non-competes constitute an unfair method of competition and therefore are a violation of the Federal Trade Commission Act. The 1914 law gives the government power to prevent unfair methods of competition and investigate unfair, deceptive acts that affect commerce. Okay, so, look, here's why this is awesome, and it's actually kind of brilliant, too, at the same time. So, with our judicial system being as right-wing as it is, stacked full of Federalist Society goons who are, interpret everything based on their political bias, it makes it hard to sneak through any kind of good policy that they don't just strike down immediately. This is an instance where they actually have a good chance of succeeding, and the reason why is very simple. They're almost outflanking capitalists on their own grounds with their own arguments. So in other words, that's why you saw not just California already doing this, Oklahoma had already done it too. Why? Because really, this is both a left-wing idea and a right-wing idea. The reason it's a left-wing idea is because it raises wages $300 billion for workers. But the reason it's also a right-wing idea is because you're getting that increase in wages with more competition. So you're stopping these anti-competitive practices, which theoretically, if you're a true capitalist, like a Ron Paul-style libertarian, unfettered, laissez-faire capitalist, you would look at that and say, more competition is always a good thing. That's like the heart of capitalism. And so in one of the areas where you compete, it's, you're competing, the workers are trying to get the best wages that they can. And a company's competing by paying higher wages for their talents, and then so they're going to go there. And if you're blocking that, well, that's anti-competitive behavior. That's not cool. And so it's interesting because it has like sort of cross-ideological appeal. And it still ends up helping workers massively. And the other reason I love this is because it shows that at the FTC now with Lina Khan, they're not just sitting back and, waiting for Biden to do some shit or Congress to do some shit and sort of coasting on that. She is being very proactive here in figuring out what she thinks she already has the legal authority to do to help people, and she's doing it. So this is phenomenal. I absolutely love this. Again, $300 billion raise for workers. Because, guys, think about it. The way this works, I mean, you have people in all sorts of jobs. I don't know if they listed it in this article or a different article, but hairdressers, for example, they have non-competes for your hairdresser if you're another low-wage worker. And what they do is they make it so that, like, you can't go to your boss and say, hey, I just did an interview at this other place, and they're willing to pay me $5 more per hour to do a similar job. Do you want to match that, or am I leaving to go there? It makes it so you can't even explore that opportunity. So you're getting paid an artificially lower wage because of some predatory agreement that you signed. And, people say, oh, well, don't sign that agreement. But if you have a situation where some ridiculously high percentage of the workforce, and I've seen varying numbers on this, by the way. I've seen some higher numbers as to, maybe up to 30% of the people who work in the private sector, 40% of the people who work in the private sector have this. But this one says it affects 30 million Americans, so I guess that's on the lower side. But you have so many people who are subject to these agreements, it just becomes standard operating procedure, in the same way that back in the day it was standard operating procedure to pay less than minimum wage before there was a minimum wage, right? To just pay super low wages. In the same way that working overtime without getting overtime pay, that was the norm. So, hey, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But wait, we can create a system where we have rules around this where it's more fair to the workers. This is trying to create a system that's just like that. So massive, massive credit to Lina Khan. This is absolutely awesome. And look, I hope they do it, and I hope it stands up in court, and I hope workers finally get a break in this country. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.